Hello, I'm Brenda. This is Write Your Memoir and Change Your Life, starting with yours. I'm here to help you to write your memoir. In this video, we're going to look at the topic of a working title. Do you need a working title when you start to write your memoir? In this video, we're going to look at the benefits, the caveats or the drawbacks. We're going to look at how to test your working title and why. And then we're going to look at some examples of how you can find a working title for your memoir. So what are the benefits of having a working title when you start writing your memoir? Well, a benefit is that it is a working title. It does not have to be your final title. And so if we approach it with the concept of a working title, knowing that it may change, there's a benefit to that because it gives us a really crystal clear idea of what our story is about. So often in memoir, we write so broadly that we can actually lose the story. We write too many ideas and too many thoughts. So with a working title and a working subtitle, you really do take the broad concept of your memoir and hone it down to its essence of what it's about, what it is you're offering the reader, how you can hook the reader with your title and inform them with your subtitle. It's a super simple statement that really hones your story. It helps to give you focus so that as you write your story, you know what you're writing towards and what you're writing about. I've seen it so often when memoirs go sideways. They go off on tangents. And with your title and your subtitle, you can evaluate, is this section really speaking to this title? Is it illustrating the subtitle? Or am I now going into extended territory that doesn't belong in my memoir? And another bonus of adding a title and a subtitle as you start working on your memoir is it makes it feel more real to you. It makes it feel like you actually are doing this. You actually are a writer and you actually are writing your memoir. It gives it substance and form. So those are the benefits of having a working title. Clarity, focus, being able to test everything in your memoir to see if it's delivering on the title and where your story is going. Motivation, and then of course having a super simple statement, a really distilled essence of what your memoir is about. But now what about the caveats? There are two I want to talk about. The one is your caveat may be that the title actually restricts your memoir. As somebody said to me, she's not sure if actually having a working title was a good thing. Perhaps it actually became a prison for her memoir. Because as we're exploring our memoir, something may rise to the surface that we weren't expecting. And this actually, in the process of writing, becomes what our writing or our memoir is really about. Something we weren't expecting. Well, this is where we need to not be so attached to the title. So attached to the title that now we're actually going to miss the opportunity of seeing something fresh and new and then realizing that this is actually where we need to be and that other title is no longer the working title. This can be a real experience for you. This is different from what I've explained earlier, where I said having a working title can help you to have focus and clarity and direction in evaluating everything in your memoir, because that is a different experience. However, the danger is we may miss that there's something new is what's really wanting to be given voice in your memoir, and we may push it aside because we're working with the title. We're trying to evaluate everything through and filter out things that don't speak to the title, in which case, as my client says, this now becomes a prison for your memoir, and we want to avoid that. Another caveat is that we can become so obsessed by the title, I've seen this too, that we don't actually move forward. We spend so much time trying to get just the right working title because we've forgotten it's a working title and we're just trying to nail the best title for my book. And we get so caught up in the title, the subtitle, that we're forgetting that we're here to write a story. And that writing is a process. It's exploratory. We go from here to there. We want to go in a direct line, but very often it's a meandering line or a doubling back line. That is often what happens when writing a memoir. So those are two caveats. Be careful not to use the working title as a prison, as a restriction on your memoir. Be open to something else that may come, and do not obsess about it. There's no point in doing that. Now, the third thing is, here is a benefit of a working title, and that is to test your working title, to actually take your title and throw it out to people. When they ask, what are you writing about? What's your memoir about? Tell them the title of your book, and then gauge to see what they say or do. My client, Gil Merrick, who wrote his memoir, Haunted Victory, and which is now published and available on Amazon. And when we started working together, that was the title he wanted to use. As we worked together, as I coached him through writing his memoir, we tried on another title, a title that was more specific to dressage, the sport that he writes about. And then he decided to test the title on different people. So as he spoke about his memoir and he mentioned the title we had been working on, he noticed that people just got this blank look in their eyes and they didn't ask anything more about the book because the title was so specific to dressage that it didn't mean anything to them. Whereas when he then tried his next title, the one he originally started with, he noticed that their eyes lit up, they leant in, and the title Haunted Victory said something to them. They could almost see their own lives in that title, because don't we all have some area in our life where there's some level of success, but also some level of perhaps haunting failure? And so he realized then that this was the title he wanted to stick with. This was the title that was going to be the title for his book about childhood sexual abuse and the decades of addiction that followed. And so that is a benefit of a working title, that you can test it. You can see if it resonates with other people. Now, you may have the experience where you have a working title, you write your memoir to this working title, only to find that when you submit it to beta readers, they come up with a working title that is perfect. In fact, it's now going to be the title with which you publish your book. And this happened to my client, Jean Krieg, with her memoir, Seeing Red. We had a completely different title for her book when we worked together. And we used it to direct the story, to direct the memoir. And so we did that. And then when she came back with Seeing Red from her beta reader, I said to her, that's perfect. It's perfect on a number of levels. And if you can actually find a title that speaks to your book on all these levels, like Jean's did, or Jean's does, you've really nailed it. So let me tell you why her title speaks so well to her book. First of all, with Seeing Red, Jean is red-headed, and she actually refers to herself in her book as red. Secondly, Seeing Red is this process that Jean went through to actually see herself in her story, in her book. And we went through this process together as book coach to help her to find out how she can put her story on the page in an authentic way that speaks to who she is, so she can see herself, so that she can see red. Her book is a faith journey, and in her faith journey, she cries out often for God to see her. And does he see her? And how does he see her? And he does see her. He sees red. He sees her. And that is another topic in her book. At the same time, seeing red is a phrase we use for when we're angry. And in her book, Jean, Red, often sees red as she struggles to be seen in her book by other people and to be taken seriously. Do they see red? Are they seeing her? Or do they see red? They get angry with her. Can you see all these different layers that this title really speaks to? And when you read her book, you're going to see red. You're going to see her for who she is. Maybe you're going to get angry in a book. I don't think so. But there are all these different layers and meaning that we can bring in when we've really nailed a great title. So now let's think about and brainstorm what your title could be. Well, super popular right now, and maybe a little overused, but still popular, is the one-word memoir. And we have one-word memoirs that are famous. I mean, Wild, Becoming, Educated are three of the most famous ones. One of my favorite memoirists, Dani Shapiro, she has used the one-word memoir for her memoirs Inheritance, Devotion, and Hourglass. So yes, you can certainly use the one-word memoir. But the two-word memoir is actually easy too. In fact, in some ways I find it easier. You have just that little bit more room to move. And so with Gills, it's Haunted Victory. With Jeans, it's Seeing Red. You can go for the three-word memoir. A three-word memoir that's famous, of course, is Eat, Pray, Love. But there is another one called Birds, Art, Life. You can choose something like that. You don't have to have a 1, 2, or 3-word title. You can go to 5, maybe even 7 words. But by the time you're getting to 7 words, you want your title to be really strong, that there's a reason why there's 7 words. Like the one by Maya Angelou, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. Whatever it is, your working title must speak to the premise, the promise, the content of what your memoir is about. You could consider perhaps you have a family saying you've always used, and you can use part of that family saying. Perhaps it's a little bit on what happens at home stays at home. You could call your memoir What Happens at Home. There are a few that play on words too that are really nice. There's Mennonite in a Little Black Dress, which is a play on blonde in a little black dress. What about There Is a Season? This one I really like as a title because it makes me think of the verse in Ecclesiastes that says, for everything there is a season. And this one I find is a lovely title because it's a title about a garden memoir. It uses the garden and the seasons in the garden to be the container, the holder for this memoir. So it really is a lovely title. Another example is to take a saying and condense it. So for example, Kerry Washington in her memoir, Thicker Than Water, she's taken the saying, blood is thicker than water, and she's used only thicker than water in her title. Using a working title is optional. It has benefits, and as I've mentioned, it has caveats. But do you know there are 7 key ingredients that have to be in your memoir that are not optional? These your memoir has to have. Take a look in the description below. I have a link to a free guide that will outline those 7 key ingredients for you so that you don't get them wrong. I would recommend working with a working title, and to make sure that you know that you're working with a working title and that it can change. I will see you in my next video or in one of my shorts.